Boneriano não tu sem medo. Bantu maluco que tá aqui nos back. Bless.
Guapo mi pueblo está caído, en trampa nuestra queda caída.
Después de 10, Boneriano nang a perder turnan derecho para gobernar a mes. Gradualmente está reemplazado todo jefe en el local de departamento, tanto gubernamental como no gubernamental, para otro nang. Pone Bonaire back lista de territorio nang sin propio gobernación de Naciones Unidas, ta duna nos e posibilidad de ganhar e derecho e back. Pone Bonaire back lista lo forza governo holandês para reportar tur año na Naciones Unidas tocante el desarrollo de agente local boneriano conforme ley internacional artículo 73 de Naciones Unidas y derecho humano. El programa aquí, Nos Verdad, lo explica el proceso de poner Bonaire back lista de territorio sin propia gobernación de Naciones Unidas para sobre el pueblo de Bonaire merece lo mejor.
Guapo mi pueblo está caído, en trampa nuestra queda caída. Quita el lifestyle, sale grabando de Guasmay.
Nota nos, bastante tinha kaya trubal. Na queda oprime lei, inang nota super. Os cinco pipa boy ni per pa bos kan biba super. Desenos no está binduro.
Bon tardi, goedemiddag, good afternoon to all our listeners. Welcome to Raw Talk, which is our monthly show in English for all our international allies, people who only speak Dutch, or the recent migrants on Bonaire who are not acquainted yet with Papiamentu. Most of the dialogue of our organization, Bonaire Human Rights Organization, and Noske Bonaire Back is being done in Papiamentu usually. So that's why once a month we have a show where we kind of recap everything in English so that people from around the world can also be aware of what we're doing. My name is Kjeld Kroon. I am the intern at Bonaire Human Rights Organization. And today I'm here to take you guys to this wonderful hour of talk radio. To start, Pakumisa. I'm going to do one more part in Papiamentu. Siguiente, já sabra, 6 de novembro, nós de Bonaire Human Rights Organization, junto com Entrepreneur Week, nós organizar movie night a trobe, mesmo com os movie night luna passada, qual estava a Black Panther, e luna aqui nós lá se película com a hora trabalhar no Corso, qual está Bulado. Nós temos informação riba nos Facebook, riba nos Instagram e tour e outro meio de comunicação que vem queda pendiente dessa aqui, então bini bini tour, mesmo com os que vão passar edição aqui de movie night também está por nada. Okay, so for the English speakers, I just mentioned that just like last month, we are having a movie night again at Wilhelmina Park. This month, we are going to show Bulado, which is a indie movie created in Curacao. And just like last time, the movie is going to be free, so everyone is welcome to come. And hopefully we'll see you there. Okay, so as you can see, today I'm alone. My colleagues James and Dafika are not with me today, as they are in Curacao and Aruba. They're there currently, working with our allies and fighting the cause, fighting the good fight. So that's why today it's a solo edition. And I'm just going to go over, in short, again, what we do as an organization, Bonaire Human Rights Organization, the issues that we've been discussing in the previous month, and generally what our goal is. So to start, Bonaire Human Rights Organization, people may ask, what really is the goal of this? Well, as an organization started from civil society, so not connected to any governments, to any political parties or anything like that, the main cause of the organization is to fight for the right for the native peoples on the island. Rights which have been taken from us, taken through the political situation that we're currently in with the Dutch government, and also taken because we are not informed enough on the island about all these rights. So what we are trying to do as an organization is to protect the rights of the people. Next to that, we observe and express the dissatisfaction of people, as that is not always addressed either locally or in the mainland. So what we try to do then is to re-emphasize the issues that people are having here so that we can find solutions for those. More specifically, what we are doing is we are appealing to the United Nations. We're trying to get on the list of the non-self-governing territories, as that's called, a list where islands like Bermuda and Antigua and French Polynesia and quite some other island nations or small countries are on, that are dependent still on another bigger nation. So in the case of like in the case of Anguilla and Bermuda, you'll have the UK, which administers the organization of those islands. In the case of, for example, Guam and Hawaii and such, you have the US who's in charge. And in our case, Bonaire, Saint Eustatius, Saba, Curacao, Aruba, St. Martin, we have the Netherlands who are in charge. However, the Dutch islands are not on this list, as the Dutch government made it so in the beginning of the United Nations around '84. They made it so that we would not be on the list, and not being on this list implies that we do not. We can't have direct access from United Nations or any of their sub-organizations or funds to help out on the island, while in most places in the world, if there are cases of poverty, of natural disasters where you need relief, just generally for agriculture and things like that, for the protection of culture through UNESCO, there are a lot of different parts of the UN which are there to help people around the world who are going through less than favorable conditions. But because of the situation that we're in politically with the Netherlands and the configuration of that, UN cannot directly come to the islands. Rather, they have to pass a check at the Dutch government first. And if they say it's okay, then they can continue to come on the islands. And so what we're trying to do with getting on this list is that we can circumvent that check from the Dutch government, and we can get direct access to the funds, to the help, to all the knowledge that is there within these international multi-government organizations. So to continue, I'll go through some of the things that we have discussed in the past month. There were three specific instances that we've discussed at length in our Papiamento version of the show. The first of those is an incident which happened with our organization here on the island surrounding freedom of speech. The second is we discussed racial profiling in the Netherlands, and that then would develop into the question of who counts as being Dutch. Do the natives of the island count as Dutch or not? And if so, will we also be checked unnecessarily at Dutch borders for entering just because of our dark skin color? But I'll go further into that once I discuss that point. And the third thing that we have discussed in our Papiamento program is the situation surrounding Minister Ollongren, who from her throne or her very comfortable seat in the Netherlands dictated that people here should use less electricity, should use less airco, should shower less, so people here feel the effect of poverty less, which again is a very, uninformed statement. It's a statement from someone who clearly does not understand how things work on the islands. So that's something we also had an issue with, and we discussed at length during the show. So yeah, bit by bit, I'll go through these cases and through what we have discussed in our Papiamento edition of the show, and hope to inform you all with that. Okay, starting with the freedom of speech incident. About 2 weeks ago, there was an incident between one of the supporters of my colleague James and 3 young police officers here on the island. The situation is like this. The supporter of my colleague James, he has a billboard in his yard on his private property. A billboard which is in support of the cause of Nos Queboneiro back. And on the billboard there are certain bits of information which definitely show the dissatisfaction with the way that the Dutch government is running things on the island. However, 3 police officers went up to this man who lives in the house where the billboard is, and they harassed him, demanding that he take down the billboard. Very courageously, the man said no, he will not. He will call upon the organization so we can deal with this in a more appropriate manner, in a more public manner. And so we did. We had a press conference in front of the billboard in which we stated our position on it. And that kind of goes like this. The billboard is, first of all, on private property, so the government cannot take it away. Next to that, whatever is written on the billboard as advertisement, as something informational, is protected by the right of freedom of speech. Even if people in the government or police officers or whoever, ministers, the king, the queen, it doesn't matter, even if any of them disagree or have an issue with the contents of what is on the billboard, they do not have the right or the power, or rather they should not have the right or the power, to force anybody to remove the billboard, as it is protected by freedom of speech. We then further re-emphasized why it's so important that we have this right of freedom of speech and that we protect it, and that even fighting for this one billboard, it has bigger implications, right? If we allow the police to take down this one piece of advertisement, of information that they don't agree with, what then stops them from blocking anything that they don't agree with? What then stops them from locking up a reporter that said something against the police? What then stops them from locking up any protesters that peacefully resist the ideas and just the police or the government? That is something that, of course, cannot happen. Like the freedom of speech is one of the key components of a democracy. If people cannot out themselves in the way that they want, in a constructive way, of course, you do not want to incite any hate speech or cause any public disorder. But if someone is expressing their opinions, however disagreeable they are, that should be allowed, no matter if you agree with it or not. Because, yes, again, freedom of speech is a fundamental right, fundamental to democracy, fundamental to having a free press, which is also needed to, again, further develop the democracy, because without free press specifically, anything you read is just government propaganda, and with that you also cannot have a healthy function in democracy. So that was the first instance, or not the first, one of the 3 big issues that we spoke about this week in our Papiamento show. And we are looking at how the situation continues to develop. So far, the billboard luckily remains standing, and so far no one can do anything about it, because again, it is protected by freedom of speech and by private property rights, as it is on the private property of a law-abiding citizen. Again, if it was somewhere publicly on the street, then the situation would have been different, and then it goes into public property rights and whether as any organization or anyone that needs advertisement, you can put stuff on public property. But again, since it was on a person's private property and he allowed it, the situation should be closed as is. The next thing we've mentioned during these months' talks is we responded and made a statement towards Minister Ollongren in the Netherlands. We made a response against her statement. As her statement, in short, I'm paraphrasing it to my understanding, as I don't have the quote here right now. But as I mentioned it earlier, she advised people on the islands to use the airco less, to use less electricity, and to shower less, because that'll help. That'll lift a lot of the people out of poverty. And again, we emphasize that this is a very blind statement. First of all, looking at the weather, looking at climate here, and just the massive amount of heat compared to the Netherlands, where everything is cold and you need to heat up your house. To be able to concentrate and work properly, you need air conditioning or something of the sort here. If not, you're just sitting in the heat, and that doesn't help. Same with water usage. The heat on the islands makes people sweat more, makes people get more dirty. All the dust on the island gets you dirty. So there's incentive for people to shower more here. And what is problematic about this statement specifically is that it pushes the blame for the poverty situation on the people because they shower more or they use more air conditioning. Well, that is not the root issue, the root cause of why people are going to poverty on the island. There are a couple of causes that, a couple of things that cause that. And there's other avenues that they should pay attention to as the Dutch government that would help way more. Like, for example, groceries. The groceries on the island are fatally high. It is incredible how expensive it can be to just go to a shop and try to buy the most basic needs you need to have a proper healthy diet. And more often than not, it's cheaper to just buy some fast food somewhere or buy something that's quickly made and probably really fatty and then not good for your health, because to buy a cucumber is like, what, $3? Buy 2 tomatoes, you're also at $3. It's just a really, really high price for groceries. And if people need to give out about 75% of their income just to buy food, you already have a problem there, poverty-wise, health-wise, that as a government you should be taking care of. Another thing which causes the poverty that is not showering too much or using too much airco is the minimum wage. The minimum wage also is criminally low on the islands compared to in the Netherlands. Compared to the cost of living here, the minimum wage is low. Most families, people, households with 2-3 kids, their parents that work 2 or 3 jobs, trying to maintain a decent lifestyle for their kids. And there's definitely also quite some single-parent households. And compared to the European part of the Netherlands, the social safety nets which are in place there for if someone is going to poverty, if someone has kids that are going to school, the social safety nets are also not the same. So for someone who's going to someone who's living below the average for poverty, right? I'm not sure what it is out of my head right now, but you have the minimum amount of money you need to be considered someone who's in poverty or not, and that depends per country you're in. Anyway, for people living below that line in the Netherlands, there are a bunch of different safety nets which they can use, which at least makes them survive adequately. Here on the islands, those safety nets have not been implemented yet. And instead of pointing the finger and telling people to shower less or to use less air conditioning, it makes more sense, to me at least, for the ministers who have the power to change anything, to bring that change on the island and to introduce those social safety nets and things of that sort. That fights the poverty problem way more than just pointing fingers about showering. Yeah. Not to hang too long on this topic, I will then continue on to the third thing which we discussed during the month. There's no particular order. These are just three of the topics that came to play during the conversations we've had on Fridays between myself and James Finis. The third topic that we discussed was the case of racial profiling being allowed at border checks in the Netherlands. The situation was that there was two Dutch citizens of color who have been traveling back and forth between Europe and also just intercontinentally to actually lecture on racial profiling and racism. These sirs, when re-entering the Netherlands as Dutch citizens, continuously have been treated unfairly. They've been randomly selected out of the line for immigration checks. And because they were not happy with this happening multiple times, they, together with Amnesty International and some other human rights organizations, opened a court case against the Marechaussee, which is the internal police, I think that translates to internationally, but the military police, the internal military police, the Marechaussee. They started a case against the Marechaussee where they fought against this practice of using skin color as a determinate factor for who is a threat to enter the country or not. However, at the end of this legal process, the judges actually decided to agree with the Marechaussee and agreed that race or ethnicity actually is a fair factor to use to determine whether someone is a threat or not to the Netherlands. And yeah, this is problematic for quite a couple of reasons. The main reason of which is that the Netherlands, through its history of one, colonialism, but also with migrant workers, through just globalization as a whole, where from around the world people are blending and mixing and living in places where they are maybe not originally from. The Netherlands has over time and throughout all these processes, they've gained a new identity of what it means to be Dutch. Over time, Dutch does not only mean, or the Dutch identity doesn't only belong to tall, blonde, blue-haired people. Because of the colonial history, you have people from the Caribbean islands, you have people from Suriname, you have people from Indonesia, people from different places in the world with different complexions who, for generations already, have settled in the Netherlands and who count themselves as equally Dutch as any blonde, blue-eyed person. So technically, how you can read what the judge has decided here, those people are not as Dutch as the blonde and blue-eyed Dutch people, which is problematic because then you're technically saying some people are worth more than others, or some people are more welcome in that sense than others. And again, as a country that prides itself on being a cultural, diverse melting pot, it is definitely problematic to then also say, oh, but people who are more white-looking are more welcome to us than people who are not. Then you're contradicting yourself as a country, as a system who signals the world saying that you are open-minded, progressive, melting pot, all of that stuff. Yeah. I guess it's fine in a way to say, well, it's not fine, but a country sovereignty has the right to say that they do not want some people to enter, but then say that all the time. Keep that consistent. That's what I would say, and I would ask of that. It's something that kind of applies to us here too. Then, because does this mean that although we legally are Dutch and part of the Dutch kingdom, and as the best islands, we're even more than just part of the Dutch kingdom. We are public entities of the Dutch kingdom. Does that mean that the people on the island who are of color are also less than the people on the islands who are not of color, even though those people are natives? That's a question that leads me to then, if the judge decides that, oh yeah, but skin color is a factor which you can use to see if someone belongs here or not. I am then I'm really afraid that the same logic, the same policies are being used on the islands, because then that means that, people who have their whole lineage here are being treated as less than the people who have arrived here since short, and no one should be less than any other person. Everybody should be treated equally. So, this is also a very problematic case. Although it happened in the Netherlands, I do feel like it's very important to look at what further implications this may have, especially if it gets used as a precedent in other cases. It's definitely not such good news. This kind of recaps everything that we've done in the past month. I think it's time for our break now, and then I'll be back with some more information.
Nos que boneiro back? Sí, nos quer boneiro back. Pero, pa Kiko nos quer boneiro back? Qua boneiro nos quer back? Kiko nos ta hasi ku boneiro ora nos hanya boneiro back? Nos quer boneiro back? Rebelista di territorio nang sin propio gobernación di Naciones Unidas. Ta esaki ta e meta principal di fundación nos quer boneiro back. Nos quer boneiro back? No tem nada de a ver com independência ni saca boneiro for den reino holandês. Fundação Nos que Boneiro back, que para o rol de Deus Todo-Poderoso que o governante ng holandês tinta hunga riba e pueblo de Boneiro. Para o rol de hasi e desasi, anto sin nenhum control riba e governante ng holandês. Pone Boneiro back rebelista di territorio ng sin propio gobernación de Naciones Unidas, lo proteja e gente local boneriano conforme artículo 73 de Naciones Unidas. Mescos que el pueblo ng di tres islas ng más próspero den Caribe, Isla ng Caimán, Isla ng Virgen Británico y Bermuda. Nang tour arriba el lista desde ayanan 60 del siglo pasado. Ni gobierno holandés, ni gobierno local no ta decidí de pone Boneiro back riba el lista. Sostener Fundación Nos quer Boneiro back, hasibo donación y ayuda Nos quer Boneiro back, pone Boneiro back riba el lista. Nos por y nos lo hacie. Di e pueblo de Boneiro pa e pueblo de Boneiro.
Hello, welcome back to our program Raw Talk, which is the once per month English edition of the show Nos Verdad. Earlier, before the little break we just had, I was just going through the issues that we've been through in the past month, not months, singular. The issues that we discussed was the harassment of police officers of one of our supporters, harassment surrounding a billboard, which then devolved into an issue of freedom of speech, whether someone is allowed to share their opinions publicly or not, and what happens when those in power disagree with that. We talked about the statement by Minister Ollongren urging people to shower less and use less airco so they cannot be poor, which is a faulty statement at best. And it clearly overlooks what the real issues that are causing poverty here on the island are. And then the third thing I talked about was racial profiling at the Dutch border. Something that seems like it happened far away, so it doesn't matter as much here. However, it could have implications, as with this ruling, the Dutch is making some type of distinction between Dutch people who are white and Dutch people who are of color. There's legally now a distinction being made between those two, and this is dangerous territory. So, yeah, that's why this also was a very interesting case for us. It just makes us think a bit and speculate about how far this could go and what the possible implications could be for this ruling on the island. Besides that, there's some other things we mentioned, of course, just general things that people are not happy with on the island. Those things include the level of hospital care, which is lacking at best, negligent in general. There are so many cases of people having to go back to the hospital 5 times for the same issues because they weren't listened to the first 4 times. The lack of intensive care units here. Just a general state of healthcare. While if you again compare it to the Netherlands, which we are part of, there's a big discrepancy in the level of care. And again, being the public entities or special municipalities, as we're being called, there should be more equality in how those processes go. Furthermore, people complain about the infrastructure here a lot, specifically the roads. As people from the islands, I probably don't have to repeat this to you, but yeah, we're all very aware of the situation of the roads here on Bonaire. It's not great, and again, it's something that it's a problem that maybe is being overlooked as, oh, well, it's not too bad, it's just a road, you can just drive over it. But if you look at it long term, the continuously broken roads cause more car damage to average people or people who already don't have that much money. So then this eventually costs the local population a lot of money in the long term, because they have to continuously get their cars fixed, get new tires. They hit their car on like a hole in the road, and they have to replace some expensive part. So beside it's just being an issue of infrastructure, it's also an economical issue that affects people on the island. And again, for those who are less better off, that car repair could cost a month's salary, could cost them to not eat for a couple of days just so they can drive and go to work. Of course, for those who are better off, they can pay the repair, and it probably won't affect their daily life as much. But for those who already don't have a lot, such car problems can be very problematic. So yes, there's plenty of reason why people on the island also complain about infrastructure a lot. Also mentioned already the discrepancy between cost of living and income. How over the past 10 years, 11 years since we've been part of the Dutch Openbare Lichaam, special municipality, since then the cost of living has gone up, but salaries have pretty much stayed flat. So, for a lot of people, things have gotten worse in that sense economically. That's something also that people are very concerned about on the island. Next to that, working opportunities, and this is a more complex situation. This was in the paper here on the island also a while ago. This is something that we lightly discussed in one of the shows also, where, for example, in the service industry, I know it happens a little bit in construction, it happens a bit in the hospital also, but service industry was one of the biggest culprits of this problem, where instead of hiring locals who could work there also for longer term, what they would do then is hire young students who are coming from the Netherlands, who only work for a year or half a year, who don't have to build up a pension, who don't want weekends or holidays off since they don't have family here, things like that. They prefer to hire those students instead of the locals. This again then means that in even a working situation, local people are being disadvantaged because of the massive influx of young Dutch kids that are coming to take their work. And yes, this is again furthering the poverty problem, furthering the inequality problem. And that's something also that people have been voicing their issues about a lot on the island. So I thought it would be really interesting to add this also to the general update that we are giving you, or I am giving you today, about Bonaire Human Rights Organization and what we have been preoccupied with. Okay, this then in short captures all of that we've talked about. I'll just reiterate kind of why I'm here, what I am doing here. Some of you, mostly the people who have listened to the Papiamento shows, have seen my face. I've been introduced in short in some of the shows, but I haven't really gone into exactly what I'm doing and all of that. So I'm studying at the University of Leiden. I'm kind of on an internship project right now. To collect data, collect information, specifically about the current political situation between the Netherlands and the islands. I consider myself someone who focuses on political philosophy and decolonization, but I also have a background in African philosophy, a bit of a background in Buddhism, not that I would call myself an expert in that, but still quite a background. And yeah, as someone who is really concerned about politics, political philosophy, and decolonization, the situation on my own home island is a really interesting case of colonialism in an age of post-colonialism, as they say, without using these difficult words. The islands are a really interesting case of countries still having colonies in an age where most countries frown upon people having colonies, and I think it's weird, and I was just wondering, how could this be? Like, how could it be the case that, for example, if everybody says don't buy a red car, how could it be that the Dutch government still goes along and buy red cars? Like, why is there no international outrage over it? Not to compare situations, because of course our living conditions are not necessarily comparable. But if you, for example, look at the situation with Taiwan or Hong Kong and China, where it's a similar thing, right? The mainland, the big country, who has some political connection to an island, claims complete sovereignty over that island, and that it can, that it is the rightful owner of said island. We are in a comparable situation with the Netherlands. However, in the situation of China, the international community is in outrage partially. Partially. Of course, the countries that are economically dependent on China or something along that line, they don't dare to speak out against the current situation with either Taiwan or Hong Kong. But there are plenty of big countries who recognize this as some form of neocolonialism, as a form of oppression of the people, and they are speaking out against it. On the other side of the world, the Netherlands is actually doing, at least politically, a same move. Strategically, it's the same move. It doesn't involve the same amount of violence, and there's definitely a bit of a different power balance, but the Netherlands is doing the same move. It's claiming sovereignty over a group of islands which, because of the past and colonialism, it had some connection to. Yet, it's just silence from the international community. Even in the Netherlands itself, there isn't much conversation about the islands and the situation with the islands and what it means autonomy-wise, what it means oppression-wise. There's little dialogue about that in the Netherlands itself. Here on the islands, the dialogue, of course, is very big, because the people who are directly affected by these policies live here. The people who want to change those policies live here. The people who are being disadvantaged by the policies, they live here on the islands. So, of course, it makes sense that the dialogue is more alive here than in the Netherlands. But still, I'm wondering how could it be that there isn't an international lens on the situation? And that is kind of what I'm researching, not in those exact words or in that exact statement, but it brushes upon that. Well, in the search, in my search for the answer to this question, or just in me exploring all the information I can get here on the island that I cannot get in the Netherlands, I encountered, I learned that my problem is actually situated in the same problem that that Bonaire Human Rights Organization is dealing with. The reason why, or at least one of the main reasons why, as opposed to a lot of other countries that are colonies, that the international community isn't paying attention to the Dutch Antilles and the Netherlands, is because we are not on the list of non-self-governing territories. Us not being on that list signals to the international community, to the United Nations and all that. It signals that, oh, we are an autonomous country, we have self-governance, everything is okay in kumbaya, for lack of better terms. However, again, just even looking at the statement by Minister Ollongren, listening to the problems that the people on the island have, it's clearly not kumbaya. Everything is clearly not good. And looking at how things are being politically handled, we clearly don't have the autonomy that we ought to have. There's definitely forms of autonomy, like the island council and all that can have decisions on something, but in the end, the end decision still lies in whether there is approval from the Dutch government or not. And that check there, that check of everything, not everything, but the check of big decisions that people on the island decide having to be checked by the Dutch government, is something that is inherently colonial. It is reminiscent of how the governor would function in the colonial days, where sure you would have local tribal leaders that have some autonomy within their system, but then still they have to respond to the governor. The governor is the one who's the end-all, say-all of everything. If the governor disagrees with a policy, however good it is, the policy won't happen. And right now we're in a similar situation. So no, there is no autonomy. So then how could it be that there is no autonomy and we are still not on this list? We are non-self-governing territory. We are one of them, but we are not on the list. Why is this? How could this be the case? And how does this tie to the international community not paying attention to the situation on the islands? And it kind of goes like this. one of the aspects of being on the list is that if we are on the list, all the islands, not just Bonaire, then the Netherlands has to hand in yearly reports to the United Nations about progress being made, about development, and development on any level, on economic level, on cultural level, on social level, educational level. But yearly there'll be a report from the Netherlands to the United Nations, who then can assess the situation, can step in if necessary, and can do all that. But since we are not on the list, the Dutch government doesn't have to report anything. So internationally, or like on the international scale, if you look at the United Nations, they are not aware of how things on the island are changing internally, because there is no internal, there is no reports going to the United Nations to relay this information. So yeah, that's kind of where my own questions collided with the trajectory that the Bonaire Human Rights Organization is on. So yeah, we should definitely get Bonaire and the other Dutch Caribbean islands on that list, so that at least there is that impartial referee which can look at the situation and say, hey, this is going wrong, this is going right. Because as long as it's just the islands dealing directly with the Netherlands, the Dutch government who holds the power, they can put the islands in a position where the islands are forced to go along, because if they don't go along with something, you don't get the money, you're impoverished even further than you already are. It's technically just blackmail, right? So and then another question that then can arise is then if indeed all the islands and countries that are on the list of non-self-governing territories, if they have that oversight by the UN, how does that happen, and why are our islands not on that list? Right? Because it should be, at least as how we've been describing it, how I have been describing it. It's a list that contains islands and countries that are non-self-governing, that are administered by another bigger country. This applies to our island, but yet we're not on the list. Why is that? And in my research, I found, kind of historically at least, why that is the case. So as soon pretty much as the United Nations was formed and the Charter of the United Nations was made, which is like the list of rules of what every country that's a member of the United Nations needs to do, pretty much as soon as all that was established, which was late 1940s, as soon as the United Nations were established, they also created the list of non-self-governing territories, because ending colonialism was one of the big tasks that the countries collectively thought they should try to achieve. So then this list was created, on which Bonaire and Curacao and the other islands were on too. They were written on this list as Curacao and dependencies, since back in the day, the whole former Dutch Antilles was seen as Curacao and its other islands. So actually, when the list was created, we were on the list, and the Dutch government did have to report to the United Nations yearly, and did, internationally, because of international law, the Dutch government was forced to promote self-governance and autonomy on the island and create economical development and everything. It was the case that we were on that list. What happened is that just the Dutch government of that time fought incredibly hard to take us off that list. Why? I don't know yet. I'm still trying to find what exactly was the motivation and the rush for taking us off that list. Knowing how in the history that government has behaved it's probably because of money. But yeah, pretty much as soon as, the charter and this list was made, the Dutch government immediately tried to take us off the list. I know about how prematurely it was done, because again, one of the conditions for being taken off the list is to have, self-governments, to have autonomy. The first sense of autonomy for the islands after the Second World War, after the age of decolonizing, the first sense of autonomy happened once the Dutch Antilles were created, because then there was a collective island government that did have more power to govern itself, with then the Dutch government just above it, also with a governor and everything. So it still was kind of colonial. It wasn't truly autonomous at all, but still it is something that resembled autonomy. So the first instance you can speak about autonomy on the islands is around when the Dutch Antilles were created. Well, this happened in 1954. Talks have been happening for about 6 years before, but I guess when from what I've read, at least, from when the islands properly started functioning as autonomous was, and when it was all signed on paper and officiated, was in 1954. Remember that, 54. In 1948 already, before the talks about the Dutch Antilles were done, before there was, 6 years before you could say, hey, there is self-governance on these islands, 6 years before that, the Dutch government already was pushing and pressing the United Nations to take the islands off the list. I don't know how they managed. I don't know if it was a lie. I don't know if it was just straight up negligence from the United Nations. I cannot make any concrete statement about that, as I haven't found any definitive proof yet. But it is very suspicious that 6 years, as soon as you start talking about, we can potentially create this autonomous entity, 6 years before that, the Dutch government was already pushing and pressing and sending in different requests, which are available online, different requests to take the islands off the list. And that then happened as soon as the Dutch Antilles were created. So the reason why islands like Curaçao and Bonaire and Aruba and Sint Maarten and Sint Eustachia and Saba are not on the list of non-self-governing territories is because the Dutch government took us off the list. Starting in 1948, they tried, but they finally managed to do it in 1954. Again, I'm forced to ask again, why? Why so early? Wouldn't it have been better for the people on the island to stay on the list? Since again, there's also more internationally available resources for the island. Wouldn't it make more sense for the Dutch government to say, actually, you should stay on that list, because then from the outside, people can also help. At least that's what I would think. And that would definitely be better for the people, right? If you look at it that way, it would be better for the people on the island to remain on the list. Why then did the Dutch government still take us off? Did they not know that it was better for the people? Or did they know it was better for the people and still chose to take us off because of money? It could be anything. There probably is, there definitely is a legit reason as to why they take it. At least I hope there is a legit reason. Because if there is not, then this is again another aspect of the colonial regime. And yeah, we gotta do something about that. So let's get us back on this list. And I think that will be the whole program for today. Just to repeat quickly, November 6th, 7 o'clock at Wilhelminaplein, we have our movie night. This week we're showing Boulado, which is a movie created on Curaçao with a lot of Antillean actors and actresses. So it's a great good time. entrance is for free. Just come, take a chair and join us at Wilhelminaplein. Para nos oyentes não conta papiamento também. 6 de novembro, 7 horas, na Parque Wilhelmina, nós temos a seguinte edição de nossa série de cine. Para a edição aqui nós mostramos a película Bulador, qual é uma película trabalhada no Corso, papiamento, subtítulo em inglês. Então, é preço luta por nada, mesmo que eu passar. Bini e bini tur, danke para ter no show.
Junta e guia para nos líder de turno, awe nos ta abri wowo, hanya nos de cerca que nos no que tá. Com pouco conhecimento de próprio passado e sem nenhuma ideia onde tá vai, ta só ta manter-nos na vida. Come e lembre. Nós tá come nos mesmos rumang para quedar na vida, anto lembre estrangeiro que recuta ta manter-nos na vida. Come e lembre. Tá na moda hoje em dia. Boneriano tá critica boneriano. Família tá lastra família. Vizinha tá brinca vizinha. Anto tá elogia esum, kuna nossa niki pato a bruye. Me tá bem mais leu ainda. Riba instrução, nos líder na local tá dobla dentro esquina e boh. Come nos mes rumang, purba frustra e luta que tá iba para nos tur. Diz para complacer algum estrangeiro que nós não sabemos que está na verdadeira intenção.
E sei no que me, com amor